So welcome to the Cinema Audio Society YouTube channel. Today I had the privilege to have a conversation with re-recording mixer Jaime Baksht and Michelle Couttolenc to discuss their work on Sound of Metal, which has received an Academy Award, Oscar for Best Sound, and finally an award for Outstanding Achievement in Sound Mixing on the recent 57th CAS Awards. So let's go ahead and bring them in. Jaime, Michelle, how are you
Hi, very well, and you?
Hi, hi, Michael. Hi, Michelle. Very, very happy to be in this conversation.
Well, I'm just beside myself thrilled to have this conversation with you today on behalf of CAS and to host this conversation and really to take an inside look into your amazing work on the film. And congratulations on your AMPS CAS Academy Awards. Those are no small feats. Part of the purpose of these videos with the CAS YouTube channel is not only to, help inform and educate and have conversations with other audio professionals in the industry, but also to work with students as well who are maybe thinking about learning, getting into the craft, and also others in the industry to just create more awareness around the craft of cinema audio. So if you want to start out, I'd love to just open up the conversation with you today to basically talk about how did you guys get involved with the Sound of Metal in the first place? And briefly, like, what is your role as a re-recording mixer on the show?
Well, we got involved in Sound of Metal because Darius called Nicolas Becker, a sound artist, to do all this sound design. And Nicolas was looking for some place not quite different for doing the mix of Sound of Metal. And he was at New York with collaborating in a disc with another musicians. And there was a Mexican musician called Leonardo Heiblum. And the two of them became very close friends. And Nicolas asked Leonardo, where should I am looking for a place to do the mix. And Leonardo recommended Nicolas to come to Mexico, to Tepoztlan, and then to call Jaime and myself to do the mix.
And Nicolas was one of the composers on the film, correct? Nicolas Becker?
Well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. And Jaime, how about yourself? How did you get involved with the project?
Well, as Michelle explained, I've been looking for the work of Nicolas Becker because I like the way he thinking sound. He also do installations. That means not only works for cinema, but also works with other disciplines, other artists. So the other artists probably do photography or painting or sculpture, and he do sound in that kind of events. He also do these kind of installations for museums around the world. As far as I understand, he had been working with Brian Eno, which I love his work. Mm. So I knew Nicolas, and for me, Nicolas was like someone I would like to join and work with. So as Michelle explained, this friend of us, Leo Heiblum, who is also a musician, met Nicolas, and at some point, for some reason that I don't know, they recommend us. And
That's
they recommend
excellent.
to come to Mexico. Yeah.
Now how did you, so that's how I'd imagine that you then met Darius Martyr, the director, who had also mentioned through him as well.
Yes.
Yes.
So we first met Nicolas, and then we met Darius. Strange way of working, but that's the way it happens. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd imagine at what point had you guys met also the picture editor for the film? I believe it's Mikkel Nielsen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think we met we met him at the Oscars.
No,
So
no kidding. Okay.
yes, what happened is that Nicolas had been working the project like a year before they shoot it,
Okay.
and so Nicolas was the one that was in touch with the image editor. So we didn't know anyone except that we knew the existence of Nicolas. Yeah.
That's excellent. So, I mean, there's so much to talk about, both technically, artistically, and creatively about this process. But if we start with Philip Blatz, also he was a production sound mixer on the show, and from what I understand, it was shot in Massachusetts, and it took about 4 weeks of principal photography to complete. And so my question is, as far as the post production process, where was it edited? Where was the show edited and mixed?
Well, the show was edited. It began. Nicolas Becker was the one who began to edit, and then he invited Carolina Santana, a sound editor, and then the Follies were made by some Finnish Foley artists and mixers. And then with Darius, they were all together with Darius, Nicolas, and Carolina. They spent like some weeks at Paris, where they began the editing. And then they moved to Los Angeles to do more editing. And then they came to Mexico, to Tepoztlan, where they continue editing. And at the same time, we
Paris, LA, and then Mexico. Okay.
Yes. And then Carlos Cortez started the mix like 3 weeks. And then Jaime and myself arrived to the mix, and they were like also doing ads of new things that they were changing or something. So there was like an edit room also while we were mixing.
Yes, and so Amanda has recently done the interview with Carlos. We're so sorry we couldn't get you guys all at the same time, but that was a whole amazing conversation. So he was the first to be involved in the mixing process in post. And now, as far as the beginning of that process, you guys had mentioned the first time that you met the editor. Mikel was at the Academy Awards. So I'd imagine the first time you guys were into the mixes, the rough cut was already complete, or the picture lock, and Carlos had already started working on it. Tell me about your specific roles in the first tasks that you were taking on specifically with the mix. So was it divvied up into dialogue mixing and then music mixing here? And tell me about that process on how the three of re-recording mixers work together to help begin to shape what would ultimately be the sound of metal.
Well, so Carlos did like a first pass of everything, like dialogue, music, and effects. He did a 3 weeks first pass, and then Jaime and myself arrived to the mix. Normally, Jaime and myself, we've been working together for like 15 years. And normally he does dialogue and music, and I do effects, ambience, and Foley. Okay. But in this case, when we arrived to Splendor at Tepoztlan, we saw the film like with this first pass. And then we, like with Jaime, we looked at each other and we were saying, well, we have to do a lot of things. I remember that in this pass I took like, because I always take like with the feet and frame or time code notes with a list of everything, the changes that I want to make. And I did like 600 notes or something like that. And with Jaime, he does more like an old view of the film, of the things that must be changed. So in fact, we did like both things, like dialogue, music, and effects, the two of us.
I'd imagine after 15 years of working together, there's a certain amount of chemistry at play as far as the process, and you guys are very much anticipating each other's roles and how your input works together.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct. And
Now, how
also
long
the
have you?
thing
Go ahead.
is, sorry, and also the thing is, because of the equipment that we had at Splendor, that was an S6, two players, one recorder. The thing is, you cannot work together with someone. There is only one control surface. So what happened is that we something we learned in these 14 years is that nowadays editorial and mixing are merged. So, but you need to be careful of what you need to mix and what you need to edit because sometimes it's more easy to edit a dialogue problem than to try to really mix it. I mean, you can mix it, but it's going to take more and it's going to be less fine, you know. So uh, we change the roles so that at some point Michelle was mixing and I was editing, and at the beginning Carlos was like conforming and making ads, but he gave like a quick pass of everything, so everybody can have an idea of what the sound of the film was at that moment. Because when we arrived, they still editing and they still giving a lot of ads. We're supposed to get the picture lock, but as a matter of fact, there were three versions of the film. We did the first time we spent I don't know, like 4 weeks, Michelle and myself mixing the first version, and then they took the film like 3 months, and 3 months later Darius called us and tell us, hey, I have a new version. So we do all the conform for the new version, and we try to keep everything we like it, not to touch it, just to be really just in the cuts. The new things need to be corrected, but we try to keep everything as it was. And then there was a third version, no? And the same thing happens in this. I think in the second version there was like 60 changes in the whole film, 60 cuts or inserts or whatever. But in the third version, there were like 120 different arrangements. Even they change scenes in between, as far as I remember. So, yeah, all the confirm was done very carefully, very, very carefully. We before we attempt to do the conform, we did some kind of trial. We try to mimic what will happen, and when we have the exactly idea of how to conform properly, then we apply to the main sessions.
You know, one of the interesting things too when I was researching the project because was how some of the roles seem to spill over into each other. Like Michelle, I noticed that you were also credited for dialogue editing as well as re-recording, mixing, and it's interesting to me also how your relationship into the film was really introduced by Nicholas and the music. And one of the things that I didn't see, and I'm very interested in discussing with you, is the sound design credits. You know, obviously, one of the big elements of the film from the experience is of the listener is Riz Ahmed, you know, the who plays Ruben, and the sound obviously of his deafness and his experience from going to the implants and all of the different versions of the degradation of his hearing through time, ultimately to complete deafness, and then moving into this implant experience. How did that evolve? Like, how did sonically, how was that created, that experience?
Well, Nicolas brought like he recorded a lot of different things with a lot of different kind of microphones, contact microphones, even stethoscope microphones, and then with all these elements and textures and some elements that were like high frequencies or low frequencies, he had a lot of different textures and sounds. So he brought all of them to the mix, and then while we were on the mix, we were like choosing and seeing which ones, the combinations of which ones were going to work better, and mix them, pan them, had some levels, and also that at the beginning, all of his deafness wasn't must be like a very credible or empathetic, and not just like a filter with muffled sound. And it was like a combination of all these sounds that we mixed.
So
I,
so
I, I will I would like to say that also what happened is that they did a big research of what's supposed to be get deaf with people that was deaf or that was in a process of getting deaf, and also with a lot of doctors and scientists of what deafness supposed to be. So Nicolas even took Reese to an echoic chamber in France in a place that name is IRCAM, which is an institute of R&D of technology and techniques for creating strange music, concrete music, and all that stuff. So what happened is in that chamber, they mic Reese with the contact microphones, so they were able to record the blood passing through the body, which is in the mix. You have a little bit of that. We don't want it to have the blood, you know. This was it
mhm.
was not a gore film, but it's part of the sound of the internal sound of the of Reese as he get deaf.
That's incredible. So what you're saying is Nicholas uh, had actually mic'd Riz in a way to help capture some of the internal, some of his internal processes to be blended as part of the mix. Am I understanding that correctly, Jaime?
Yes, and also I would like to say that Philippe was using different kind of microphones, very good ones. I don't know, Schweppes and Neumanns and Sennheisers, but at the same time, Nicholas Becker gave him some kind of really contact strange microphone, so that every all the dialogues start to sound muffled, but because the response of that kind of microphones. And Philippe record all the good ones and the bad sounds, or the bad the quality sound at the same time. So it's a combination all the time of the good and the bad.
That's amazing to me. So just so the viewers know, Philip Blad is the production sound mixer on the show, and Jaime, to hear about that level of coordination from microphones, from the music, the composers, Nicholas, and also I'm assuming Abraham was also a part of that process as well. He's also credited in the music with the
Hmm.
show. Is Abraham Mortar,
Hmm.
and and then Riz was also an executive producer. Not only was he the lead role playing Ruben, but he was also an executive producer on the show. So I'm sure he had a very strong creative influence on the shape and sound of that. Was he involved with the mixing process? Like, what was, as far as like the reviews and so forth, or what was that like?
Well, not at all, because I think what happened is that Reese like trust very much to Nicholas, and I think Darius as well. Uh, what happened is Darius and Nicholas talk have a long talk. So how the deafness supposed to be, and it seems like underwater sounds could be the kind of idea. So, but something that Nicolas was always taking care is that the reactions of Reese and the kind of sounds we use in the mix it match together. So Nicolas was like recording a lot of things, but he also was taking care of the reactions of Reese along the from the film, you know. Like when he get the implants for the first time, all the reactions match perfectly the reaction of the sound of the implant. This is a moment of really super matching, but there are other moments. But something that we recommend Darius and Nicolas was that we should try to be as much natural possible, uh, as much time as possible. Because if we go with the deafness since the beginning, and we go in this like ramp down to the deafness, we need to keep it as high, as best quality as possible until the last moment. If not, it will be a little bit boring for everybody. But also, we recommend, well, we not recommend, but we said that for me, and I think for Michelle as well, what happened is that something that you need to understand is that Reese was born deaf. He was
Mm.
a man that was able to listen the complete sounds for like 30 years of his life, and he was a
Wow.
musician. So that means that he had a memory, a sound memory. So we need to use the sound memory as much as we can. Uh, and this is when the image and sound start to mix together very nicely, because there are a lot of moments in which you are in real sounds, even when Reese is deaf. Uh, Only when we want to focus in Reese uh, internal in his own mind is when we go deaf, is when we go muffle. Okay.
Hmm. It's very interesting to me as well as you talk about the process as far as the evolution of his deafness as it continues and his hearing continues to degrade, and how you had mentioned that it would be stagnant or boring if it stayed the same and if it didn't evolve to that. And when I was watching the film for the first time, I just could not help but just be absolutely haunted by his experience, as you were just experiencing a just an incredible amount of empathy and fear for his character. And as it evolved, and especially when you guys got to the sound that you masterfully created uh, with the implants and the way it mixes in the show, and it was just scary. Um, and just created an awareness that was just beautiful. So great work on that.
Thank you.
So tell me about some of the unique challenges that maybe you faced. You had talked a little bit about having three different versions and all the different changes that were evolving. Was there anything specific in your mind about getting to the final mix that you were really just trying to put your finger on, that just felt like it was just taking a lot, if that makes sense of what I'm asking.
Mhm.
Yes, I think one of the most challenging parts was opening concerts, because even if we mix it like 12 times, and I remember Darius like at the third version saying, well, I think it's quite good, it's okay. But then with Jaime, we didn't we thought that it could be even better, because it's the opening, so it's like saying and telling the audience that you're like you're growing your empathy to with Ruben, and so being with him and feeling that you were like playing the drums or in the concert was a very challenging moment, because of not just doing like a big wall of sound and a massive concert, just loud from beginning to the end, but keeping some like textures and little changes between cuts and some little differences to made it like really became like real and feel real. So this was one of the big challenges, and in fact we remixed it lot of times.
12
And then the
times, 12 versions.
12
12,
times.
12 versions. 12 versions of
Yes.
that.
And in fact, in the third version, we even redid another various mixes of this opening concert. And the other part was also the implant, who is a really scary and amazing, because I think perhaps the audience thinks that when Ruben is going to get the implant, he's going to hear well, and everything is going to be solved, and he's going to be back to his life as it was before. But having all these changes of textures, and when the doctor is like adjusting all the different kind of moments that he's listening, it was a very challenging moment as well. Because at the beginning, Nicolas and Darius thought, when you haven't your ears, you cannot hear like the directionability of the sound. You cannot hear if it's coming from the left or if it's coming from the right. So when he has the implant, it's like everything comes around him, and he doesn't know the direction of the things. So there was like a first version of the mix that everything was going autour. I forgot the word in English, like around him. And
Omnidirectional.
Surround?
yes,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yes, around him.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then we, with Jaime, we thought of another way to doing it, not so open, but like sounds being inside some spheres, and then other sounds in other sphere, and then another sphere englobing all the other spheres, and then inside in his head, and moving everything around, and to be some not upsetting thing, because he isn't listening as he was before.
So what Michelle tried to say is that first we use what's the name of the plugin, Michelle? The panner.
The spanner. Mm-hmm.
Okay, we did with the spanner. Something that is really nice with the spanner is that you can create a small 5.1, because you can not only rotate the speakers, but you can make it smaller. You can bring all the speakers together. Even you can make a mono. So we did like a 5.1 over the head of Reese. So, and for every movement he did, we follow for every cut and for every movement. So it took a lot. It was a lot of automation.
Yeah.
And then what happened is that all the other sounds were like omnidirectional, because Nicolas suggests that. He said that probably in the deafness or with the implant, because you don't have the two ears, and because you are not able to find where the things come, because you don't have a phase relation, and level is really crazy. It's an electronic thing. So everything should be like omnidirectional. But then we said, as Michelle says, okay, we have this 5.1 of what Reese is hearing, changing for every movement of his head. And then what all the other like backgrounds and sounds of the real things, like what the doctor was listening, or what the other people outside the implant was listening. We did another 5.1 that moved a little bit more in the point of view of the other persons, not in the point of view of Reese. But then Michelle, one night we did that mix, and well, it was quite interesting. But I think that night we went to sleep, and we were not so happy So next morning, Michelle said, "What about if we put all this inside a other spanner?" So we are going to have like three spanners moving in a different rotation, but the third one need to be chaotic because if you don't have directionality, but you have memory of sound, because your eyes are watching things, and you know because you was able to hear how things supposed to come and how the things supposed to be. So you need to fight against what the implant says and what your brain says. So this is when all the like random strange panics occur. And as soon as everything was like normal, okay, you keep the 5.1 of Reese, you keep the directionality of the other people with the other 5.1, but the third 5.1 was like in a normal position. And again, when things start to get crazy, the outside 5.1 was the one that get crazy. So it was a very interesting way of working. Nicolas was crazy. He was really scared. You remember, Michel? At the beginning, he says, "Oh my goodness, no, that's too much." But Darius says, "That's exactly what I want, Nicolas." So at the end of the story, Nicolas agreed that was a good idea, and we keep it that way. Yeah.
It's amazing to me. Not only you spoke about early all of the research that you and your team did about the experience of deafness on the film, from the organic capture that you guys did with Philip and the choice of microphones, and coming all the way back around into the mix process with the surround panners. And speaking of, obviously, Ruben's perspective with his deafness, then the real world perspective, and then it's intriguing to me how you spoke about also the memory, the memory of what the mind remembers when it was once hearing, and how that blends also with the experience of the implants. It's just incredible to me, the amount of detail and artistry that went into that from your guys' standpoint. So talk about, I believe, Amazon purchased the film, I believe, and it did theatrical distribution in November of 2020, and then went quickly to Amazon streaming. I believe it was in December 2020. And talk about the formats and delivery for theatrical, and also any other technical type formats and delivering for the Amazon platform.
Well, the film was mixed before the pandemic started. So, and we were like doing all the deliveries just when here in Mexico, we did all the deliveries, by the way. We first did like the 5.1 mix, that the theatrical version. And then for all the deliveries of Amazon, Jaime and myself did all the different formats. So it was just the beginning of the pandemic while we were doing that, and we did like there was a Amazon distribution for America, and then it was a Sony distribution for UK. So we did like 32 different kind of formats, from stems and money. Yes.
Wow, that's incredible. You said 32?
Yes.
Around,
yes,
wow.
I counted like 32 different folders of different things, like stems, like dialogue,
Yeah.
music, FX, Foley's, ambience, backgrounds,
DMEs.
DMEs, and the M&E, and the ITRT M&E, and the blah, blah, all the things.
That's amazing. So you guys really took this film, I mean, from start to completion, from all the way from the delivery to all of the different aspects and mixed deliverables.
Well, I would like to say something. Also, what happened in order to create the idea of silence in the film, what happened is that we create a really massive dynamic range in the film. I mean, you start with a concept that is almost in the limit of what you can record in full scale, and then you cut to the trailer park, which is a lot of things. There are a lot of winds. There are like a lot of rooms inside the trailer park, or you know, uh, but a lot of different colors. But because you have all these big noise or big level at the beginning, when you cut to this other place, it seems like there is silence, but there is no silence at all. So we find out that if we use a lot of dynamic range in the film, this will create the idea of silence. There is only one moment in the film in which we definitely go to nothing, which is at the end, when he disconnects the implants. At that
Yes.
point,
Mm-hmm.
that's nothing.
Yeah.
But we don't want to use the nothing in a few moments in the film. And something that the guys from Finland, the Finnish guys that did
Mm-hmm.
the Foley artist,
Yeah.
Heikki, was talking with Nicolas a lot about resonance of the body. So it seems like when you lose your ears, you are not losing your brain. That's a different problem. If you get deaf because you have a problem maybe in the brain, well, probably you are not going to listen to anything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how this is another problem. But when it's a problem in your ears, your brain is still listening because you have your legs, you have your hands, you have your nose, you have links all over your body. So some of the links match frequencies. Uh, so Nicholas talked a lot about how the resonance of Ree's body should sound. So part of the Foley was thinking in the dimensions of Reese as well. Uh, so uh, I forgot what I want to say.
No, that the body is also listening. Even if the brain is not listening anymore,
See?
we can feel the vibrations of the frequencies and this sound. And in fact, in the movie, there are no silent parts, just only the end. But these like vibrations are that we think are like are in fact vibrations that are there, even if he doesn't listen anymore. He feels
Yes.
that.
I mean, the thing is, people that doesn't listen, if they put the hand close to a piano, they are going to feel the music through the vibration of the piano, through the hand, through the legs, through all the dimensions of the body. So the body is resonant. So the silence was created by using a lot of the dynamic range. And when we were talking about deliveries, yeah, now I understand why I was saying all this. Because in the case
Mm-hmm.
like the stereo version of the film, in the 5.1 we use all the dynamic range that we could use for cinema.
Mm-hmm.
But for stereo, that is not going to happen. So
Mm.
that's why we decide and we ask and we said, can we please do the deliveries? Because we want to keep the idea of the film because we know how the film is supposed to sound. So we need, when we start to do the stereo version, with Michelle, we really keep the idea of the whole sound of the film because we know it. So the way we did the stereo version was that instead of using too much compression or plugins. We didn't use any very little of compression, very little of limiting, but instead we cut parts of the stems. We cut it and we bring it down in clip gain. You know what I mean? So, and then we mix it with faders back, so the changes didn't jump at all, but that the dynamic will keep what the standards need to be, you know.
Yeah.
So again, we try to make the concert as loud as possible for stereo, but
Mm-hmm.
because the difference in the dynamics is, it was like I don't know, probably 10 dBs of difference. Okay, we cut the concert like 7 dBs. We bring it down, and a little bit of limiting, and a little bit of pushing with the faders again back, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, merging all that stuff. But not, there was no plugin or just play and copy. No, not at all.
Yeah. I just wanted to say this was a very just an inspiring and amazing conversation that we had this evening, and how much we appreciate your time and really celebrate your work on your well deserved Academy Award and all of the AMPS awards and the CAS award, and this level, as a sound professional myself, this level of collaboration and artistry and research is just it's stunning to me, and it's very inspiring. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Michael.
So I think we're going to close it up, and I just want to say thank you to our guests for being here again, and be sure to subscribe to the CAS YouTube channel for future videos to be updated as they come, and we'll look forward to seeing everyone real soon.